Welcome to the Life Leadership Podcast with myself, Leila Singh, all things coaching, career and personal branding. This podcast is for ambitious career professionals like you, wanting to create a life of choice and freedom, to be, do and have more through overcoming limitations, to develop new perspectives and insights, and to redefine your success, be that in work, health, relationships, and so much more. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to Live with Leila. And I would like to introduce myself. My name is Leila Singh. I am an executive, career and personal brand coach. And I work with career professionals, typically in the technology industry, who are looking to overcome their limitations so that they can uncover their real potential and create new possibilities, both in their career and in their life, all whilst showing up as the best version of themselves. And this is what I call life leadership. So today I'm going to dive straight into today's topic, which is when things don't go your way, who do you blame? So here's the thing, it's easiest to blame all of the things, the situations and the people that are outside of your control. For example, the government, the economy, the pandemic, Brexit, the weather, your employer, your boss, your colleagues, your partner, and the list goes on. And here's the thing I want to invite you to consider. We are all responsible for our day-to-day experiences, our outcomes, and our results. So what is it that you can do differently to take ownership to have things go your way? This is what I'd like to invite you to really slow down to consider today, because it is so easy when things don't go our way to look at who or what we can blame and why something didn't happen, or what did so and so do that made this situation occur, right? And we don't have control over a lot of situations, a lot of things, and of other people and their behaviors. What we do have is a lot of influence and also a lot of control over ourselves, over what we can do, how we can respond, what we can say. So I'd like to share with you a couple of things for you to consider so that the next time that things don't go your way, you could do something different. And I invite you to really take ownership for that, to what you can control, what you can influence, so that you can have things go your way. So firstly, the question to ask yourself is, what lens do you choose to view the world through? And just give this some thought. For example, do you typically look at the positive situation or the positive in any situation, or do you look at the negative? Do you naturally look for reasons to why something is the way it is, and okay, what can we do differently or better? What can we change? Or do you look to criticize or to blame and to take no responsibility? And here's the thing with this. This is about bringing awareness to you in how you show up in the world, how you show up in your career, and how perhaps you could be open to a different way of being, a different way of living, a different way of perceiving how things occur around you. So what is it you traditionally or typically do? Bring that into your awareness, because when you do that, if you do find that actually you naturally go into the blame, the criticism, and the, well, why don't they all do these things? What is it you could do differently that could allow you to have a better experience, to have a better outcome? And start to tune into that, start to recognize what it is that you are doing naturally. And if it's something that isn't serving you, if it's something that is keeping you in the same situation or having a repeat pattern of a certain situation or an experience, then maybe it's time to look at what it is you can do differently to take that responsibility, to take the reins and show up in a different way. So the question to ask yourself is, if something occurs, for example, in the workplace, let's say, and you feel that you've been hard done by, or something wasn't fair, or something didn't go well, or you were criticized for something, what is it that you could have done differently? Or what could you do better the next time? How could you handle that situation differently? Or if somebody has said something to you that hasn't landed very well, or you felt that it was unnecessary, it was rude, it was unfair, whatever it might be, then ask yourself, first of all, what were the intentions behind the comments that were made, behind what was being said? Because you want to remember that in some cases, when people say things, it isn't even personal. It could simply be they're frustrated with their own situation, or they have challenges going on, whether it's at work or it's in their home life, and they've just reacted in a certain way, and now it's triggered you. But actually what they've said or what they've done may not even be personal. It may not be anything to do with you. And by the way, usually that is the case. Often when people say things that aren't perhaps useful or constructive, then, in other words, if they react to a situation and maybe put you down or be really critical, unless it's constructive criticism coming as feedback from somebody who has your intentions as good intentions for you, that you can trust them, they have your growth, your development at heart, and you can trust their opinions and their views, then you don't want to be taking it personally. And just remember that you don't know what's going on for the other person as to why they may have lashed out or gotten angry or said something that perhaps wasn't appropriate or necessary. In other words, look at how are you choosing to respond to that situation. Are you exacerbating it by then responding in a way that's similar, by getting angry or maybe shouting at them or being nasty to the other person, whatever it might be, that just exacerbates a problem that actually was maybe even an innocent comment that was said in the heat of the moment in a situation of frustration. So the question here is, what was the intention behind the comments that were made? Another perspective to consider here is when someone is perhaps feeling insecure in their situation, in their role, perhaps maybe they feel they're not as good as you, that you're better than them, that you know more than them, or that you're more popular than them, whatever it could be, right? That creates that level of insecurity. Maybe that they don't feel good enough. So often when we're in that situation, when we're feeling insecure, we're not feeling that we're not good enough, that the people around us perhaps are better than us, it's easy to then have that insecurity reflect in our behavior. So that might show up in the way of put me downs or things being said to make us look bad, or whatever it could be, right? There's a lot of ways to do that, which aren't great. They're not nice. They're not necessarily effective. But what they do is they can then end up bringing you down and having you react in a way that you wouldn't have done otherwise. So slow down and just check in with yourself as to what's the intention, behind what they're saying. What is the intention? Is it because they want to look better, they're feeling insecure? And actually, if that is the case, then it's not personal, it's not about you, it's about them. And this is where we now come to, well, how do we choose to react or to respond to that? So a question now to consider for you is, how are you reacting? How are you responding to a given situation? Because often the way that we choose to react how we react in any given situation, if we've got people around us, let's say in our team, who aren't delivering at what we think is their best, or people who just aren't really applying themselves to their job, perhaps people who are causing problems or friction within the team environment, whatever it could be, right? There's so many different things. How are you reacting to that? What is it you're doing? And actually, is what you're doing helping the situation to improve, or is it exacerbating the problem? And something I'd like you to take away from this in particular is looking at how we choose to respond. And this is a big aspect of personal growth, personal development, and self-awareness, is really tuning into realizing the level of responsibility that we actually have when it comes to our day-to-day experiences, be that with situations or with people. There is a formula that is shared by Jack Canfield. Jack Canfield is the author of the Success Principles. He also is the author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. You may have come across him. In the Success Principles, he talks about the level of influence that we have over our situation, over our experiences. The formula is this: E plus R equals O. Now, what do those letters stand for? The E is the event, the occurrence, the situation, the conversation. That's the event. The R is related to the response that we give to that. What do we do in response to what is said or to the situation or the occurrence? And O is the outcome, so the experience that we have or the results. And within this formula, Jack Canfield talks about the fact that actually, when most people believe that the experience that we have in any given situation is a direct consequence of the event, of the occurrence, or of what is said, in fact, that only represents 10% of our experience. Why? Because in actual fact, we get to create our experience. As I said, when we take responsibility for it, for how we show up and how we respond to situations and what we do about them, we get to create that experience for ourselves, or the results. And what he's saying is that R, which is our response, is actually 90% of what we end up experiencing. In other words, no matter what happens in any given situation, ultimately how we choose to respond, in other words, taking responsibility for how or what we do, will give us a different experience. So think about it. If something doesn't go to plan, what do you immediately do? Do you immediately fly off the handle? Do you get angry? Do you lash out at somebody? Do you blame somebody or something? What do you do? Or do you just slow down for a moment and give a considered response to that and actually look at, okay, why did this person behave in that way? What was it that triggered them? Was it that I didn't give them enough support? I didn't give them clear direction? What could I have done differently to create a better outcome in that situation? How am I going to respond to this? What can I do differently? So this is where it's really clear to see that actually a lot of the experiences we have, and then going back to my original question, when things don't go your way, who do you blame? Rather than placing blame, when things don't go your way, slow down and ask yourself, what can I do differently? How can I respond to this situation to get a better outcome, to have a better experience, or to get an even better result? Maybe someone says something to you, and or maybe someone asks you a question and you don't know the answer, or they accuse you of doing something you haven't done. And naturally, we go into defense mode. We don't know the answer to something, we're trying to cover up, or we might start to waffle about something, or we may go into defensive mode if we've been accused of something. What else could you do? How could you respond differently? If you're going into defensive mode, actually stop, slow down, smile, and walk away. If you're being asked a question and you don't know the answer, rather than maybe getting really anxious and having a bit of a panic and starting to make things up or waffle, just again, slow down, smile, say, great question. Before I respond to you, I want to make sure I've got all the facts together. Let me come back to you, and commit to a time when you will come back to them, whether it's the end of the day or the next hour, tomorrow, whatever works in that situation or in that context. So you get to choose how you respond to things, right? And it's the same with conversations. It's really slowing down and saying it's not always about blaming the other person if something isn't going to plan. Think about team dynamics. When things aren't going well, what is it that you could do to bring the team together to get people to be more bought into what your objective is? Why is it that perhaps somebody's pulling their weight? Maybe they've got a personal challenge going on. They're not 100% focused on the job at hand. So what could you do to support them even more? So in any given situation, whether it's personal or professional, when things don't go to plan, my invitation to you is to really slow down to that. And before you start to cast blame on situations, occurrences, people that are outside of your control, even the weather, right? Whatever it is that's there to blame, look at how you can take responsibility and what it is you can do differently. How are you looking through that lens at the world around you, at the people around you? Do you naturally go to criticism and to blame and to judgment? Or are you looking at the fact that actually everyone's doing the best they can with the resources, the knowledge, the experience they have available to them? And in many cases, most cases, when people behave a certain way, it's because they believe that's the right way. That's what they know. That's what they've seen other people do. So showing compassion and tuning into that and recognizing that, okay, they're not being necessarily mean intentionally. Maybe they just don't know any better. And when they are being mean intentionally, it's probably come in place of insecurity. And it's not about you personally. So there's so many dynamics to this. There's so many other ways of looking at things, which aren't necessarily the most obvious or the simplest, or the ones that are comfortable or that we want to take on, because it is easier to place that blame. So my invitation to you from today's episode of Live with Leila is to really slow down to, when things don't go your way, what can you do differently to really take ownership so that things can go your way? What lens are you looking at the world through? What responsibility are you taking, and how are you choosing to respond to those situations? So I hope this has been of value for you today, and you can take this away and apply it to your day-to-day so you have better experiences, better results, and better outcomes. And then things you will find will actually start to appear to go your way. So until next time, I invite you to remember to elevate your performance, to maximize your potential, and to create new possibilities by showing up as the best version of yourself. Thank you for listening. Please subscribe to this podcast if you haven't already done so. And if you enjoyed and gained value from today's episode, then do please leave a review telling us your key learnings and what you enjoyed the most. And do please share this podcast with your friends and colleagues so we can spread the word on life leadership, creating a life of choice, freedom, and new possibilities. Connect with me directly on LinkedIn, and if you would like to learn more about how we can work together, either DM me on LinkedIn or email.